Hello and welcome to Global Sanctuary for Elephants podcast, Global Rumblings. Global Sanctuary for Elephants, or GSE for short, is a non-profit organization with a mission to create vast safe spaces for captive elephants where they are able to heal physically and emotionally, often from very traumatic pasts. I'm your host, Nadia Mari, and I'll be taking you to the lush jungle of the Mato Grosso region in central Brazil, home of GSE's initial project, Elephant Sanctuary Brazil. Currently home to 5 female Asian elephants, lovingly referred to as the girls. Hi everybody, welcome back and thank you for joining us again this week for a new episode of Global Rumblings. I am still in Brazil, so I'll just look across the table and say, hi Kat, hi Scott.
Hey Nadia, how are you doing?
Hi.
I'm fine. It's sort of like a Groundhog Day. I've had a great physical workout again today, cleaning yard 5. The yard is so big. I think this is the first time I've actually driven around it or been driven around it. We found lots of secluded areas where the girls had some poop parties, so lots of poop to pick. But the last weeks we have talked enough about poop, so we're not going to be talking about poop today. We are actually going to be talking about Bambi, your 7th elephant. But before we do that, I keep on meaning to say that our podcast is now also available as a video edition on YouTube. We have caught up, and thanks to Bob, our wonderful co-editor and producer, I think the last 7 or 8 podcasts are actually already available as a video. So go and check that out. We'll put the links into the show notes. And if you can't wait and you're listening to this on Spotify, then just head over to YouTube and type in Global Rumblings podcast. Okay, from poop to YouTube, back to Bambi, your 7th elephant. Tell us about her.
Oh, sweet Bambi. Let's see. She actually is one of the very first elephants in Brazil that we ever met. Maybe the first Brazil that we went to. During our first trip, you guys may recall back in the early episodes, we came to Brazil in 2013. And did a little bit of an exploratory trip to see what the status is of elephants in Brazil. What is the political atmosphere? What is the kind of communications we would have with zoos? Get to know some people that are interested in trying to help start a sanctuary here, and kind of explore a couple of different regions to see if it moves forward, where would be the best locations to build for the sanctuary. Through that, we went to a zoo in São Paulo state. It was actually in a city called Leme, Leme. Actually, a beautiful little botanical gardens. And when she was removed from the circus, they sent her to the botanical gardens, because what else would you do with an elephant from the circus? So they actually built a small enclosure for her, very, very small enclosure.
Still nicer than what she ended up in at the next place.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice and grassy, and actually a cute little area. Lots of little birds running around. I don't remember what other, there was something else. There was peacocks or something else, ducks. There was something else in her enclosure also.
They had all the little monkeys just outside.
Oh, and they also had, from the viewing area, there's all the little, I can't think of what they're called in English.
I don't know.
Sagui in Portuguese, but I can't think what they're little tiny primates, but they were all over the trees, really charming little things. And she was just as cute as could be. I mean, she was a little bit roly-poly. She was
a chunker.
A little bit on the fat side. And it was actually while we were there that the director or the curator, I'm not sure what his title was, asked us if we could take her. And that was the first time somebody in Brazil said, can you please take our elephant? And here we are exploring what is the scenario, what is the culture, what is the atmosphere like? And they said, can you please take our elephant?
We don't have a property. We don't even know where a property is going to be or if we are really going to do this, and still being asked to take elephants.
Yeah. And we said, what kind of time frame you're looking at? He said, within 6 months. It's like, well...
That is not going to happen.
But that changed the urgency a little bit during those first days. That's when it really started to punctuate. It's like, not only is it feasible, not only is there are regions that have perfect climate, but there's a extreme need with animals just like Bambi that had been confiscated, as we talked with Maya, with Lady, with Hannah, all the same sort of scenario, where they had all been removed from circus because of changing legislation and nowhere to go.
And they were very sweet on her. They loved her. Their big thing was they felt like they can offer her what she needed because they had no expertise. You know, they never planned on having an elephant and they wanted her to go somewhere better. So it wasn't like they were terrible or anything like that, but they wanted a better life for her.
One of the biggest things that we saw there was diet. I think it was the vast majority, if not 100% of her diet was close to 100%. Close to 100%
it was like
diet.
Maybe 80.
Was sugarcane.
Oh.
Is very, very, very common in many locations in Brazil to feed their elephant sugarcane. In part because it is a huge crop here. It grows everywhere.
Super cheap.
Okay.
Very cheap. And the elephants love it, of course. But then you do have, a risk of developing diabetes and other health issues associated with very high sugar content. Fortunately, we haven't seen any impact from that. With her blood work, it all looks pretty good even to now. But it was always a concern. Sometime during those first couple of years, and I don't remember when it was, we were not ready yet. We still had Ramba on the list of a priority in front of Bambi. We had Maya and Gita, who became more urgent than Bambi because they were going to be going to if they didn't come to us, they were going to go to an amusement park.
An aquarium.
An aquarium, that's right.
Because every aquarium needs elephants.
Yeah. And so Maya and Gita were high on the list, and then Ramba was high on the list. And during that time, the zoo said, we can't wait. We need to send her somewhere. She was causing problems with the fence, breaking the fence down. It wasn't a great fence, but it was just electric cable and eucalyptus posts. And at some point, they decided to send her to live with Maison, who was in the zoo also in São Paulo State, a city called Ribierão Preto. And it was a couple years later that we started getting calls about her. We had always followed her a little bit. We always wanted people to watch, see what was going on. But there was a little bit of people lost track of her a little bit because she was never outside in the enclosure.
Mm-hmm. Every time we sent somebody to go check up on her and see how she was doing, Maison was always outside and you couldn't see her at all.
And Maison was another female Asian elephant?
Yeah, we actually met Maison in that trip also.
Yeah.
We met Maison on that trip and visited her zoo way back in 2013, long before Bambi moved there. Very different, very, very different elephants.
Yep.
Maison was quite angry.
But they thought she was great. They wanted us to go into the enclosure and meet her, which we never do. But it's very common for places to be like, no, come inside and meet our elephants. And they were talking about, you could do this, you can do that. Watch, our vet's going to go out and work with her. And we're watching and we're like, she's half a step away from hitting that man. So we actually had a conversation with them. We're like, she may be a very good elephant, but she is very close to being aggressive. And we talked about some of the behavior we were seeing and what that leads to and so on and so forth. And after our conversation, they were like, oh, there are so many things she does now that make so much more sense that you say that. And it's like, oh my God, please do not get yourself killed by this elephant. Yeah. You are pushing all of her buttons. She's trying to tell you you're pushing her buttons and you're just ignoring it, thinking she's this great elephant. That's a mess.
We ended up meeting her more later on when we were moving Bambi. And she's actually really sweet and soft. She has such a cute little sensitive side to her.
She does.
One of the most charming elephants I've ever met that way. But that's segue from Bambi a little bit. We can go back to Maison in a minute. So during that time, people started having red flags about Bambi. Why aren't we seeing her? Why is she locked away? At some point, there was a video that came up and saw that she was incredibly skinny. She had lost a lot of weight.
Especially considering how fat she was when she was at the Leme Zoo. And it wasn't that long. And she was one of those elephants you would see and say, she's skin and bones.
Yeah. So we actually didn't recognize her. I mean, we knew she was her, but if you looked we actually did some comparative photos as part of the what was next to come, which was a legal battle that was put forth by some of the animal welfare organizations in Brazil. They initiated a campaign to try to get her released from the zoo, a judicial action to get her released from the zoo. And we did comparative photos in that. And it was striking how how much different she looked, not just in body condition, just her whole face, everything.
Because she reminded me of Delhi the first time we met her. And then the second time we saw her, there was like no resemblance whatsoever.
No, her skin looked great. I mean, she looked really, really good. And then the next set of photos, once we actually, when she emerged from being outside, which wasn't, from being inside, which wasn't often, you could see layers of dead skin. And for those that have followed her rescue, followed her relocation, you probably remember, or at least subsequent photos of the layers of skin on her forehead. And I remember later on when we were at the zoo for her transfer, the veterinarian even said, that's just dirt. It's like, no, that's skin. That's dead skin piling up on your elephant's head and her back.
So she was
her
intimidated by Maison and frightened. So she just didn't come out of her indoor enclosure. She just stayed in there.
That's actually a little bit more involved. What we were told, and this ties into what Kat just said about them not understanding Mason's behavior. They really don't understand elephants at all. They don't know how to read behavior. They don't know how to manage elephants. They were free contact, walking in with the elephants, but they had no idea.
But while they were free contact, they weren't doing anything for their elephants. So sometimes places will use free contact as an excuse of, it's the only way we can do footwork. It's the only way we can do blood work, blah, blah, blah. But they weren't doing any of those things for their elephants. They were just walking around free contact with them, giving them food and making Maison put her trunk up. It was, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty tough scenario to see. And, they have made every excuse why she can't go to sanctuary. Of course, when the campaign started, the zoo fought back, not by defending themselves, but by slamming the sanctuary. So we got pulled in the middle, even though it wasn't our campaign, we got pulled in the middle, and, all kinds of slanderous things were stated about the organization, about, our fencing, that we don't have any fencing at all. It's just electric fencing. We let elephants run free in the Cerrado. I mean, the list goes on and on. And there were some very...
you laugh, but people actually believe it when they read it. And it's like, oh my gosh.
And there were some personal attacks that came out there also, against us, against GSE, against me, against Kat. And it was one of the first tests for our team here. And we said, we don't get involved. We're not going to get into trying to defend all those things. It's a very small audience that is listening to them. And most of those people want to keep her there. And they're not going to change their minds just because we tell them it's wrong, and of course people are going to want to defend themselves in that scenario, but then you just waste time and waste energy kind of going back and forth trying to defend yourself against somebody that doesn't really want to know the truth.
Back to the relationship with Bambi and Maison.
Segue. So back to Maison and Bambi. One of the things that we were told is that when Bambi arrived, they actually sedated both elephants. And when they woke up, they were together. Oh. So that was their introduction. So for those
which is a horrific idea, and I have no clue as to how that got approved.
I think it just goes to show the level of, I want to say ignorance, not to be insulting or mean, but really they really have no idea. And unfortunately...
But even if you don't know elephants, would you do that with two dogs? Do you think it sounds smart to have two sedated dogs that don't know each other, just put them next to each other and let them wake up from surgery? Two people. I mean, you don't have to know elephants to have some sort of comprehension that that's probably not going to go very well. And it did not.
No, and they didn't have proper facilities for separation. I mean, the list goes on and on of reasons why they probably ended up at that scenario, none of which were viable options because they didn't have a proper facility for elephant introductions, and they didn't have proper team for elephant introductions. But unfortunately, that's kind of standard, not just in Brazil, but around the globe. We hear stories of facilities that are not designed properly, that have conflict, that don't have people that know what they're doing. They may have some experience, but a lot of it is relatively complex to understand elephant behavior. But unfortunately, a lot of facilities just don't have the training necessary. So they were kept separate. And because they didn't have proper facilities, they had one elephant outside, one elephant inside. And Bambi, because of her insecurities and because of whatever happened during that, which we really don't know, she was kept inside more often than not. She would often stay inside 3 or 4 days, go outside for a day, then go back inside. There were times they said she would not go back inside after she was outside. and again, we don't know all the nuances of what transpired.
Tiny little area inside, concrete floors, terrible lighting. I mean, little dungeons of a barn that she spent days upon days in.
Yeah, poor ventilation, et cetera, et cetera. And if she's in there all the time, then harder to clean, high risk to clean. I mean, the list goes on. And at some point, as she had more confidence, she did come out. And then there was another fight that broke out. She actually, I didn't see the video. Dr. Trish actually saw the video. Somebody showed her the video while we were there for her rescue. And Bambi actually initiated the confrontation.
Because everybody's like, oh, Mason's so, she must be so mean to her. It's like, actually, Bambi is the one that started the one fight we saw, which ended up being a really big fight.
And then she got pushed into the pool. Mason went and let her out of the pool. And then once they got them separated, she went back to just staying stuck in the barn and would not come out of the barn.
Oh dear, terrible.
And then they put up hot wire at one point.
That happened after the campaign. Actually, during the campaign, during the lawsuit, because we were saying they don't have proper facilities. You can't have both elephants out at the same time. So no matter what, the elephants are only outside for a short period of the day anyway. 4
hours a day or something, 3 hours a day. It was ridiculous.
It was, normally the caregivers get there between 7 and get to the elephants between 7 and 9, and they were closed back in between 4 and 5. So a very small window in a day that they can be outside. And some of those concessions come up, with the legal discussion when the question is asked, how long are they allowed outside at night? Because they're not left free outside at night. They're both in their respective stalls inside the barn. And what they said, as soon as the caregivers arrive, it's the first thing they do. Well, not really. They first go to clock in, and then they grab food, and then they start making their rounds. And by the time they get to the elephants, it may be an hour or so later. So in an 8-hour workday, you maybe have 6 of those hours maximum where the elephants are actually not allowed outside any level of freedom. And one of the arguments against the sanctuary was, look, we give our elephants freedom too. They have access out all day. Well, what does that mean? And sometimes they would say, they can go outside for up to 14 hours a day. Well, that's not possible because caregivers aren't there for that long.
So they did a hot wire fence to split the yard to be able to have them both outside at the same time. And then they had issues with the hot wire fence because whenever you use hot wire, there are issues.
Yeah, it's not a great idea, especially in that scenario. And it wasn't designed well, and there was, the whole works. It just was not a viable option.
And then, of course, one of the other arguments was that they didn't get along, so the zoo tried to force them to be friends and tried to take video in the short periods of time that they were together. And that's actually when the fight happened. With them trying to push this relationship on each other. And they were recording because they were trying to record any time that they were actually in the same space together. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that time. So.
Yeah, and a lot of those actions were, again, in direct response to the lawsuit, trying to show what they were not providing and enforcing that issue.
So the lawsuit that you mentioned, was that then initiated by animal advocacy groups?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It was several, and I think it was 2 or 3 groups that came together. I don't remember the specifics of that, to be honest. They came together and filed a legal action to release Bambi because of her deteriorating condition. The zoo also claimed during that time she can't be transported because she has tooth issues. She's also blind in one eye, and they believe she had renal issues as well. So we were able to, the lawsuit was able to go back and say, okay, she has eye issues, she has tooth issues, she has, renal issues. What have you done for those? And the judge saw quickly, well, nothing's really been done. They did have ophthalmologists come in to look at her eye. But
they had to do standing sedation on her for anybody to be able to do anything. Yeah. So they did standing sedation so they could have at least one vet report. And they said they did blood work at that point, but I never saw any. No,
the only blood work we saw was when she first went there. Yeah. And that's when they said she had renal issues, but they never did anything for it. So 6 years earlier, you say she has renal issues, and what have you shown? What have you done? So all of that came up through the lawsuit and through, the discovery that was taking place as a result of the lawsuit and the examinations that were done as well as a result of the lawsuit. The judge ended up determining that she should be moved right away.
Okay.
And that from that point forward, it was just 4 or 5 weeks. It was really, really short.
Really,
time.
that fast?
Yeah.
Wow.
6 weeks maybe. It was really a short turnaround.
And it is one of those things where you kind of want to get it done before anything else happens. Yeah. Anybody changes their mind, anybody files a counter lawsuit, anybody does whatever. So in those sort of situations, when you get a green light to move an elephant, it is one of those, okay, we're coming.
And it's an easy move.
Yeah.
I mean, it's from Sao Paulo to here a day and a half. I mean, it's such an easy location. I mean, she's a circus elephant who's traveled for years.
So technically, she should have easily loaded into the container.
That's another story.
That's another story. Maybe we keep that for the next recording, huh? Because I do remember that it took quite a while for her to want to leave her barn, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, that's when
she was.
Oh, sorry, no, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You probably remember better than I do, of course.
No, just to say this, it's when that's when we realized the depth of psychological harm that facility caused, you know, and the altercations and everything that transpired there, because she was completely different there. You know, we talked about her physical state, but her mental state, when we saw her in Leme Zoo, she was bright, she was active, she was responsive, she was alert, she was engaging. And she was not that at all when we got to the zoo. Yeah. She was curious, but also filled with fear. And she kept herself reclused and hidden in the back of the corner. And, you know, when she would come out, she'd engage, and then she'd quickly have some little thing that happened, you know, and she'd run back to her corner and stay there for 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, okay. Then we can pick up on that next time, because if it's a quick move from Sao Paulo down to the sanctuary, then we can cover that in our next podcast. You can see I'm pressing on the brakes again. I have this list of things in my head that to do this afternoon, and. I think Katzel has a lot to do as well. So yeah, that was really interesting. I must admit I didn't have much time to check up on Bambi about her story, so I was just letting you talk. I remember Maison definitely. So that's a great topic then to discuss next time we meet up. How the crate training went, and how then you got her into the crate, and how you moved her down quickly from Sao Paulo down to the sanctuary. So yes, thank you for taking time out.
It's our pleasure, and thanks for keeping in mind the long list of things that we've put on your plate to do this afternoon. No excuses, no podcast, doesn't matter. We have things to do. I actually want to finish up, if I can add one quick little thing, because
of course,
one of the most fascinating things, not fascinating, one of the most memorable moments of Bambi's rescue was actually the transformation of the team at the zoo. Yeah. You know, and because they were very, very slanderous to us, and it was on day 2 while we were there, and the director actually came to me and said, "I'm so sorry." He said, "You guys clearly are a class act. You know what you're doing. Your team is so professional, open, kind. We did not deserve your kindness." And, you know, so sometimes these battles happen, but we leave the window open for them to see the difference, you know, see who we really are, you know, without having to shove it down their throat of, "I'm telling you who we are." You get to see it firsthand once we get there. And it's really a beautiful moment when, you know, they came and opened up their hearts and opened up a different level of conversation for us about what we can all do together.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, it's also a great gesture on their part to admit that they are not the experts, and to say that you are the expert. So that does need a lot of personal development as well, to be able to say that and to admit that one is not an expert. So that's lovely to hear that. Okay, then see you down at the barn.
Yes, let's go, Nadia. Things to do.
Let's go. Okay. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
As we wrap up this week's episode, a reminder that if you'd like to stay up to date with current events at the Sanctuary, you can do so by following Global Sanctuary for Elephants on their various social media channels. You'll find all the details in the show notes. Thank you so much, and until we meet up in 2 weeks' time, take care.